What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for yet another Tottenham update for you guys. Got 5 stories to get through today, and first up, we've got a deal that looks like it will be confirmed very soon, as we've got reliable sources, Alistair Gold and Fabrizio Romano, talking about Troy Parrott. And it's an interesting case of Troy Parrott, because we actually saw him come into Hotspur way before the team arrived back doing some training, and then ever since then we haven't seen him since the first team have come back. And I think this is why Alistair Gold says that Troy Parrott has now travelled to the Netherlands to complete a medical with RZ Alkmaar after Tottenham Hotspur have agreed to let the striker move on this summer in a deal worth €8 million. Fabrizio Romano says that Troy Parrott leaves Tottenham to join RZ Alkmaar on a deal worth €8 million. Fee, RZ reinvest money of the Sagara deal, and they're set to sign the Tottenham Hotspur striker. I don't think it comes as a massive surprise that Troy Parrott is leaving this summer with 1 year left in his deal. Pure profit, because he is an academy player as well. But it does leave us now with under the required quota going into Europe next season.
Yeah, and that's the difficult thing because of the squad places. But in terms of Troy Parrott himself, obviously had a really good season last year for Excelsior, especially the end of the season in the playoffs. He was scoring goals for fun. I think he scored, 2 hat-tricks in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And it looked like maybe Spurs would take a look at him, or Andrew take a look at him in pre-season and see if we could do anything with him, because when you've got a striker scoring goals, even if it's not the highest level, I mean, the Dutch league is not the worst league to be scoring goals in, especially for a club like Excelsior who are battling relegation. It would have been, I thought, made sense for Andrew to take a look at him, but clearly, even before pre-season, they've maybe Parrott decided he wasn't going to sign a contract, and Spurs thought they have to cash in. I'd be interested to know if there's a buyback clause in this, because he's still a young striker, and he's making a step up now to Alkmaar, who I believe are going to be in Europe next season. So it'll be interesting if he has if there is a buyback clause and he has a really good time of it again in Holland and in Europe, that maybe that's something we can explore. Obviously, he was a striker really highly thought of in the academy. There was a lot of promise with him, a lot of talk about him at youth level. Didn't really get too many opportunities in the first team. You can probably count them on one hand, the amount of opportunities he got. I just
remember that glaring one that opens up to me is the when he started in the Colchester game under Pochettino.
There was that one, and then I think he
missed a penalty in
the Norwich game in the FA Cup. So he's had a couple of opportunities, but nothing major. The loan spells, apart from this one, at Excelsior, haven't been incredible. Probably mixed. He's still, but he's still a very young striker, and sometimes strikers take time at that age to really find themselves and develop. So it would be a shame just to let him go this early. I mean, I guess from Tottenham's point of view, it's a bit of money. 6.7 million, it's not loads of money, but it's a decent fee for a youth academy product. And from his point of view, he makes a step up from last season, where he was battling relegation in the Dutch league, and now he'll be challenging for Europe and up in the higher echelons of the Dutch league, and he'll be hopefully getting regular first team football there, and with probably a view of getting a regular starting spot in the Irish team. So I can see the benefit of both sides, but I can also see why some fans might think, was it worth just taking a look at him in pre-season and just see before making any decisions?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to, for me, if this deal is good or not. If there's a buyback clause, or if there's a heavy kind of sell-on fee in the contract for this deal. I think those are things for me, whether if it hinges on a good deal or a bad deal. If it's just a straight fee with no kind of add-ons at the end, no buyback clause or no sell-on fee, then I think we could have done better. But when you're looking at Parrott, his time at Spurs, his loan deals that he has done, I don't think anything has to convince Spurs that he can make it here as a starting striker. So I think it's right to move him on, particularly with a year left in his deal. When you're looking at his loan spell last year, I do think that maybe the loan spell was kind of inflated in the playoffs at the end, the relegation playoffs, when they were playing teams from the division below. Most of those goals, 2 hat-tricks, a couple of other goals in other games, did come against teams from the Eredivisie 2, I think it is, or the division below the Eredivisie. So I do think the numbers were inflated in those games, which I'm not saying it's not impressive to get goals no matter who you're playing against, but when he was playing Eredivisie week in, week out, it's not like he smashed in the numbers. And people always say, but he only scored 4 or 5 goals below Santiago Jimenez. But Santiago Jimenez, those numbers aren't against teams in the division below. They're teams in the Eredivisie week in, week out. So I do think it's worth saying that when you're talking about his numbers he did get in the Eredivisie last year. So I think over half the goals that he did score did come in the playoff rounds at the end. So look, sad to see him go, because I was one that had high hopes for him when he was trying to break through in the Pochettino era, but it just hasn't gone his way. And, you know, there has been rumours and murmurings of attitude problems in that time. But after the attitude problems did come around, he has broken into the Irish squad. He has had this loan spell where he's done moderately well. So we'll have to see how his career progresses from here. But I really hope there's a buyback clause or a sell-on fee percentage for sure. Next up, let's talk about Emerson Royale once again. Daniel Longo says there is an offer for Emerson Royale from Al Nassr, which will be formalised later. We'll see if the player is tempted by the Al Nassr interest. The gap in valuation between Spurs and Milan is too high at present. We heard from Matti Moretto said that there's only about a €5 million gap, but now Daniel Longo is saying the gap is too high.
I think they're probably just feeding it to get Spurs to drop their price. That's my prediction anyway.
Or feeding it to get Milan to up their price.
Yeah, or it could be either way, to be honest. But I do think he'll go to Milan. I think Emerson wants Milan. I think he's already spoken about it pretty much. So I do think that's going to be the case. Al Nassr, look, we know they're more likely to stump up the fee that we want, probably straight up, or at least in better financial package than Milan. But if we get a fee from Milan we're happy with, I think he's more likely to go there. And I think the Al Nassr interest is, maybe they've put the Al Nassr interest out there, which I do think they're genuinely interested, but maybe they made it a bit more public just to try and drive Milan closer to our fee. Probably.
I did see a report saying that Emerson is more tempted by Saudi than maybe what Richarlison was. But I just find it hard to believe that Emerson will end up going to Saudi just because of how public he's made his affinity for AC Milan. He talks about Brazilians going there, and it's always something a Brazilian wants to do, go and play in Milan. Apparently he's already shopping around for his next move and houses and all these kind of things in Milan. So I find it hard to believe that this deal doesn't get done.
Agreed.
Next up, let's talk about potential incomings. No new names, but Pedro Netto. Fabrizio Romano says that Tottenham are in regular contact with the agents of Pedro Netto. For Netto, any transfer really depends on the fee. He's had many injuries, so Spurs would be happy to try again for Netto, only on normal conditions, not through crazy conditions. This is why the deal solely depends on Wolves. So do you feel like Wolves will drop their valuation?
I wonder if we can convince them to do a deal where it's a certain amount of money up front and then a lot in bonuses for appearance fees. And maybe that's something that works for Tottenham. And obviously Wolves could still end up getting a big fee if he does play the required amount of games. Like, let's say, 30 million up front plus an extra, extra 20 million or something if he hits 50 games or something like that. And I think that works for everyone. But I wonder if it's up to Wolves whether they agree that. Obviously, he's their best player, so they're going to want top fee for him. And they don't want to be losing their best player for not that much money. But for you, we had a big conversation last time about Netto, what kind of fee you're
not going to start with the whole 5 million, 2 million, 3 million, 1 million.
First, you said last time you wouldn't take him for any fee at this rate. But if it was a fee based on appearances, is that not something you'd be open to?
Look, like I said, I'm not bothered about the money. The money thing is not the issue for me here. The issue for me is signing a player that is going to be available, fit and firing to fire us to where we want to go next season. That's what it comes down to me. I'm not bothered about how much money we spend on him. That's not what I care about. I care about players that are going to come in and be ready and available to perform on the pitch. That's what I care about.
Yeah, but okay. Yeah, I mean, we've been through this. I just think sometimes there's a risk versus reward. And I think when someone as good as Netto is available, I think you have to balance that out. That's my opinion. But if we can get a good deal for him, especially if it's a deal, if we can agree a deal with Wolves where it's based on appearances, I think that would be very much in line with what Tottenham are looking for. But
when you look at it, though, when you look at his injuries, just particularly last season, he had 2 big hamstring injuries. When you look at someone, the way Netto likes to play, pacey player, loves to get run at his defenders, running behind whatever the style he likes to play in, right? I feel like once your hamstrings start going, particularly in a Postecoglou system, I feel like this is just going to be a recurring issue and a recurring theme for him.
It might be, it also might not. But it's also something you might be able to go over. There's a lot of good players that we look. Olmo's have had big injury problems. Eze's had injury problems in the past. Very good players sometimes have that, and sometimes they're worth having around, and sometimes they're not worth the hassle. I think someone like Netto is worth the risk if we can get a good deal. That's just my opinion.
Have to wait and see what happens, but it does look like Spurs are, in talks with the agents regularly to see what deal can be done. But remains to be seen. But back on what you're saying about trying to get a, heavily bonus incentivized off if he plays or not, I'm not sure if Wolves would be open to that. That's the only thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, they probably wouldn't be because they might as well keep him, but. Maybe they'll think they can get over his injury problems and he can play a significant amount against the Spurs. So maybe that's what they're thinking and get a big fee for him.
Let's talk about Desiree Douye. Ben Jacobs was on Last Word on Spurs last night, and he says that Tottenham are front runners from any Premier League interest in Desiree Douye. Spurs have already reached out to the player's side, and they have had early stage conversations with Rennes. PSG motto for buying young players and or French and or from Liga 1. PSG is very serious when they find all three categories in a talent. PSG is Spurs' main rival for Douye. PSG really wants to collect these young French talents. So that is kind of worrying when you look at the Desiree Douye deal, because you would think, a young talent out of France, 18 years of age, growing up, one of his ambitions is probably to go and play for PSG.
Yeah. And I wouldn't be surprised if he has his head turned or if that's what his ambition is. And you can also see at the moment, Barcola is getting a lot of opportunities. You got Emery in central midfield. He's a young midfielder getting a lot of opportunities. So they do seem at the moment to be giving a lot of youngsters a chance. Obviously, with Mbappe leaving, that does leave another spot in the forward line for another player. So maybe you'll see that and think it's too hard to pass up. But then again, maybe he thinks, I'm 18, maybe it's too early to make that move. Maybe I'll play for Spurs for a few years and get a big move to PSG, when I'm 21, 22. And it could be a big money move. Could look at it that way as well. But it's depending on how convincing we are and where he sees the next move at the moment. But I don't think it's beyond the realms of possibility we can convince him. I think we can make a good case, but competing with PSG for a young French player is an uphill battle.
Yeah, we've seen deals in the past. I can't remember which player it was that had a particular release clause in their contract where they could only move to Barcelona. Can you remember there was a recent deal like that? I can't remember who it was for.
And we signed them.
No, we didn't sign them. Someone signed them, and there was a deal that they had a release clause specifically only to go to Barcelona.
Anyway. We were linked with?
No, I don't even think Spurs had anything to do with this deal. But there was a player that had a release clause in his contract, particularly only for Barcelona. Do you remember who it was?
Was it Rafinha from Leeds, maybe? I don't know.
Maybe. Anyway, if you can remember who it's irrelevant who it is. If you can remember who it is, maybe put it in the comment section below. But maybe Spurs could do a deal like that where we could sign him, but have a heavy release clause in the contract where it's only goes to PSG, like 100, 150 million or something like that. And, PSG aren't exactly... they don't shy away from these big transfer deals if they really want a player, do they?
True.
So maybe that's something that Spurs can incentivise Desiree Douye, where you can see the future maybe at PSG at some stage in your career. And if he's 18 and spends the next 10 years here, he could still have a good chunk of his career there at PSG. Last but not least, let's talk about Dele Alli. We've spoken about him quite a bit on this channel over the past week or two, saying... me personally, I said I would like to see him at training, and maybe Ange gets a closer look at him to see if there could be a future there. It looks as though he has joined Everton at training. Joe Thomas from the Liverpool Echo says that Everton are now in talks with Tottenham over the future of Dele Alli. Dele's contract expired this summer, but he is training at Everton for pre-season as the Blues continue to support his recovery from injury. Everton are in talks with Spurs about renegotiating the original terms of his transfer agreement in January 2022, which would require Everton to make a payment that would be due to should he have gone should he hit certain performance milestones. If Everton are successful in renegotiating the terms, Dele would be given the opportunity to prove himself during pre-season to potentially get a new contract. So, in your opinion, would you like to see Spurs waive the fee or dramatically decrease the fee in order to aid Dele's progression?
From a personal point of view, from what I want for Dele Alli's future, because right now he's stuck in limbo. With this deal that the Spurs have agreed, because the more he plays, the more Everton have to pay. It's kind of like Everton are reluctant to give him those opportunities in case they do give him the opportunities, he doesn't do too well, and then they have to pay anyway, which is kind of the problem with this kind of structural deal. If they would have paid a flat fee, I think they'll probably be more willing to obviously give him those opportunities now and let him have a chance to rebuild his career. But because of the way this deal was structured, in a weird way, Everton are kind of incentivized not to give him those opportunities. So for me, as a person who wants to see Dele Alli do well, I want to see him restart his career, I want to see him back on the pitch at his best, and for the the kind of fee we're talking about, I'm happy for Tottenham to negotiate a fee which is much lower than the original, just to allow Everton that breathing space to give them that opportunity. But we know that Daniel Levy is a ruthless businessman, and look, from his point of view, they agreed a deal. They should stick to it. And if they believe that Dele Alli has an opportunity to rebuild his career at Everton and he's good enough to get back in the team, then they should stick to the original agreement and play him. And if he's good enough and he good enough to get appearances, then he should be worth the fee that we've agreed with Spurs. So I understand if Tottenham are reluctant to do that, but I do think they should be a bit compassionate, have a bit of empathy with the whole situation. We know that Everton as well are not exactly great for money at the moment, given their points deduction and the FFP restrictions. That makes them even more reluctant to want to pay that money for Dele Alli. So I would really want Spurs to do it, just so we can see Dele Alli back on the pitch again and have an opportunity. Because right now, he's just stuck in the middle, stuck between a rock and a hard place, and there's no moving. And I really feel for him, because I'm sure he wants nothing more than just to be given an opportunity. And this deal is preventing him that. But if you're Daniel Levy and you're Spurs, I can understand them thinking, look, you've signed the deal, no one forced you to sign that deal, and you should stick to it. And I understand that point of view as well.
Yeah, look, I want to see them do everything they can to help Dele progress his career, because we all know what he's gone through in the past. We all know the issues that he's come under as well. He's made that quite public with his interviews with various medias, particularly the one with Gary Neville, which sent shockwaves, didn't it, throughout the whole footballing world. Everyone was sending their supports to Dele Alli. So I'd like to see Spurs do something to aid that, whether it be give him a chance in pre-season or dramatically decrease this fee or waive this fee totally. I don't think Everton will give him a deal if these fees are going to be there. So regardless, Daniel Levy and Spurs, and if Everton don't take it up, are not going to be getting this fee regardless. So we may as well help Dele in this situation where we dramatically decrease the fee or just waive it totally and just say thank you for the service that you have given this club. You gave us some great years, some unbelievable years. We have such great memories of you. So for the sake of a few million, you may as well just help him aid his career. That's what I say.
But I agree with that. But let's say from Tottenham's point of view, let's say they do waive the fee, and Dele gets his career back on track, and he ends up getting back to his best, and he scores loads of goals, and he starts hitting those milestones where Tottenham agreed to waive the big fee, and they accepted, let's say, 5 million or something as a reduced fee, and then he goes on to play the amount of games and score the amount of goals that would have triggered the 40 million or whatever it was. I think it was, if he met all the targets, it would have been 40 million. And all of a sudden, that's about 30 million Tottenham missing out on just for being compassionate. And is that, from that position, is that fair? You could argue.
Maybe we should put in a heavily reduced buyback clause.
Buyback clause, getting back if he hits his best.
Yeah.
If he hits 20 goals, automatic buyback clause.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that idea. Bit of breaking news here as well about Bentancur. I'm just reading. Bentancur is one of the Uruguayan players who's been charged by CONMEBOL for his involvement in the fight between Colombia fans and the Uruguay players on Wednesday. So he has been charged now. So I wonder what's going to come of it.
Do you reckon there'll be a heavy ban there?
Well, from what I saw, he threw a bottle at a fan, and that fan reported, I don't know how true it is, reportedly that fan had a big cut on his head.
Well, I saw a video of him throwing a bottle, and I saw a video of a fan having a bottle smashed against the back of his head.
Yes, I don't know. It could be two.
But it wasn't
things.
The same video.
Yeah, it could be two different incidences. It could be, but also it could be the same one. We're not 100% sure.
I think it's likely to be the same one, to be honest.
I'm sure there was a lot of stuff being thrown at that point. So,
but and it was a Uruguay fan as well. It wasn't even. Yeah, it wasn't a Colombia fan. It was a Uruguay. He threw the bottle and it hit not the intended target.
So his aim isn't the best at the moment, Bentancur.
Nah.
But obviously, look, he shouldn't be doing that. Well, then again, when in that situation, from what I saw, when the family members are under threat, understand that emotions are high, and I think the police have got to take responsibility for that. But also the players, the players have to take responsibility for their own actions, but can you just allow them to do that kind of stuff? It's a difficult one.
It's a very similar, if it's actually much worse, but it's a similar situation to the Eric Dyer thing that we saw all those years back at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. His brother was involved in an altercation. He went charging up the stands to protect his brother.
Yeah, but he never hit anyone.
He didn't hit anyone, but this is actually a lot worse because they all had family members that were in direct threat of crowd trouble. And Darwin Núñez obviously went into the stands to try and protect their family. Like, anyone would do the same thing.
I agree.
Anyone would do the same thing. And I think there should be a bit of compassion here. But when people are getting hurt by Bentancur throwing a bottle,
you got to take responsibility for it.
Yeah, you've got to take responsibility for what Darwin Núñez did. I know he's getting involved in a scuffle, but he's literally there trying to protect his own. Like, I don't have any problem with what Darwin Núñez did.
I've got no problem with it. And if Bentancur if his aim was, protecting family members in the Uruguay, I don't have a problem with it. But as an official body, can they allow that to happen without go unpunished?
But what Bentancur did isn't even like protecting your own. He's throwing a bottle like aimlessly into a crowd. That's just reckless.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. What happened when the West Ham fans West Ham players had an altercation with the fans? Did anything happen with them, or was it just the fans who got?
I can't remember fully, to be honest.
To be fair, I don't know if any of the West Ham players actually.
I think they were just there, like telling people to calm down. I don't think they actually went in.
Well, look, it could be. Look, to be honest, if they could, if they're very harsh, it could be quite a big ban. But I wonder if it'll be just international ban or it'll be a world football ban. We have to see.
So Bentancur in the last few weeks, he's been reprimanded or he's got an investigation ongoing by the Premier League. I think Premier League or FA because of the racism thing with Sonny.
Yeah.
Now this, on top of his injury problems as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's mad, isn't it? Like, it's just one thing after another with Bentancur at the moment.
Yeah, and he's injured at the moment, yeah. Not been a great few weeks for Bentancur, I think it's fair to say.
Not been a great few years, to be honest. But, that is your Tottenham update for today. Let me know in the comments section below your thoughts regarding all the news stories brought to you today. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, come on you Spurs.